Yeah, you sound great. You look shiny.
Yeah, just did a really quick workout.
Oh yeah, what'd you do?
The 12-minute plank thing.
Oh, the extremely punitive, the Catholic one. Do you have
Yeah,
to
well,
wrap yourself
it's
on your
easy.
knuckles if you break the plank?
You have to do lunges and burpees, but every time I do these workouts, I look like Courtney Love because I don't know how to, like, Courtney Love legs. You just like what you imagine her legs would look like.
I have no
Um,
idea what that means.
Wait,
like
yeah, you
very
gotta.
bruised. Joe Cardosi calls them Courtney Love legs, like when women have bruises all over their legs, and it just makes sense to me. But yeah, I have bruises all over my legs all the time because I can't do burpees right, so I don't like fully push up from my hands to my get my hips off the ground, my knees.
So you just fall and stand up repeatedly.
Yeah, I mean I
Yeah.
use my whole body, but my knees hit the ground a lot.
Yeah, you sweaty as hell, damn.
Oh, did you get your AC fixed?
Yes.
Okay.
We had to get our air conditioner fixed. We had to get a new washing machine. Our garbage disposal's broken, and Jeff fixed our refrigerator because Jeff had all appliances put in when he got the house, so they all broke at once. So yeah, it's been a fun quarantine.
Nice.
But thank God we were able to get new ones and get our AC fixed.
What are you drinking, Ryan?
Which is pretty much all day up until about 9 o'clock at night.
You cut out. What is it?
It says iced coffee. I drink it about.
I just drank some iced coffee out of an identical blue motherfucker.
Holy shit.
Oh, that explains it.
fuck?
Okay, because I thought that you were drinking like green juice, like just like a colossal amount of green juice because of the tint of the ball mug. I mean the what's it called? Jam jar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ball mug.
Just,
yeah, that's good.
My ball mug's in the other room.
I got a ball mug for you right here, pal.
Yeah,
that's my face.
Yeah. Very good.
Flaviano, you quit drinking too, right?
No, not exactly, but I've had like 3 to 6 drinks a week for the past.
Oh, that's great.
Couple weeks. So like, as long as I can do moderation, I just do it, and then as soon as it escalates, then I'll stop for like a month.
Nice.
But I feel great. Yeah, it's I think that I was poisoning my brain, and that's why I had depression.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll do that to you.
I can like remember stuff now. Susanna
Yeah,
will
I've
be
been
like,
drinking a lot less because Luke and Chris aren't drinking right now, which are the 2 people that I ever see except for Toddler.
And she drinks.
Yeah, she's a mess though. I can't keep up.
Chris gives really good sobriety advice. He's like, you should drink dandelion tea because if for withdrawals or something. It's just like he's got a whole like toolkit.
Dude, when everyone was like first starting to like panic, like when the panic really set in with coronavirus, he was like, "Don't worry, man, just take zinc." It's like, yeah, vitamin C, zinc, just gotta boost your immunity.
I've been taking so much zinc though, to be fair.
Why?
Like I'm like, it can't hurt.
I mean, maybe it hurts.
Really? I've always taken zinc though, like
Okay.
a few times a week. And
no coronavirus, so.
I mean, yeah.
So far, so good.
I don't see how it could hurt. Everything I've seen online says it either does nothing or something. It never said it could hurt, as long as you don't take a shit ton.
How's the no smoking?
Who else is on our call?
Oh, this is just.
That's me.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I just my internet really sucks sometimes, so I didn't want to. Like, I think I just got knocked off the call even. So
Oh, yeah.
I didn't want
I gotcha.
a bunch of audio issues, so I called in as well as zooming in. So.
Oh, perfect. I was just
Genius.
worried that we were having one of those classic Zoom, like, I don't know, what is it called when someone not bombs, crashes the Zoom
Yeah,
meeting?
Zoom bombing.
Yeah.
Zoom bombing.
I actually like I spent about 15 seconds trying to allow people to join the meeting at random because I think it would be funny if we got Zoom bombed, but I didn't end up going for it. So how's your not smoking experiment going, MD?
Great. I was actually kind of worried that yesterday I did not want cigarettes or booze. I thought maybe I was getting sick.
Yeah.
But I'm not really craving cigarettes. When I see someone smoke one, I don't want it right now. So feeling really good about that.
Do you still feel like shit when you drink, for not drinking?
No, I mean, I was worried I was sick earlier this week. Oh, did we lose Ryan completely?
Oh, no.
Okay, he's back.
No, I'm still here. I'm gonna keep the video going, but I got the phone going too.
Awesome.
Okay.
Dude.
All right, sweet.
You are
Is
like
she
a
just more
Zoom.
prepared than any guest we've had, or like we have ever been?
I just thought it would like really be shit because I've seen some of these live streams people are doing panels and stuff like that, and I've seen some of them where it's like a really good discussion, it's going great, and then the person's like internet just craps out and it's just like, oh well, this is lame now. This kind of sucks. But
yeah.
Well, don't worry about a good discussion happening. That's not really
it will.
what we do.
That's not what we're here for.
Michael, you're recording, right?
Of
You're
course.
Always recording.
I'm always recording. Yeah, I think it's
like
probably
our
technically illegal
friend.
to not like tell you guys that I'm doing that, but I think this is a two-party consent state.
Yeah. So for our if it's plural for listeners, this is Ryan Mosgrove, DSA member. You used to be a regional field organizer with DSA, right?
Yeah, from right after the Trump bump to like, I think I got hired like literally January 1st, 2017, till about spring 2018. So yeah, before that I did YDSA. I was like the YDSA guy for a while, and then pivoted over to regional for the South for DSA.
So you've been in the organization since like before the explosion, before whatever the basically emergence of DSA as it currently exists.
Not really. I actually joined right when the bump was happening. So I joined like right after the election when like most other people joined. I did other organizing, and I was like a member of a different socials organization from which I joined in like 2010 and was with till like 2015. And did just a bunch of like activism and organizing stuff since the Iraq War was when I really became like an activist.
Mm-hmm.
How old are you?
Yeah, I started 31. I just turned 31.
God, I'm 31. I'm older than you. So you were an activist when you were like 13?
Like 15 probably. I started going to like anti-war protests and shit.
God, I feel
I
like
don't
shit.
like I've met people who, I really like was mostly just like going to stuff, was a lot of what I was doing. Like, I don't really consider myself like being an organizer in that time.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
when you were
I really
a child.
when I was a child, yeah. My organizing career didn't really pick up till I turned like 9. But yeah, so then I did organizing when I grew up in Florida in the Tampa Bay area. So I did a bunch of organizing there, and yeah.
Wow. Well, that's awesome. And was your family, so okay. So I grew up like very privileged, uninvolved with politics other than like, thinking Republicans were bad. But like, what was your family like? Was your family political, or were they very apolitical, or what were they like?
My dad, my mom was not super political. My dad was super political, big Republican. Just came of age during the Reagan Revolution, was like just super into Reagan, so he's like just a huge, and he's like not like, my family was really working class, and my dad drives like a bread truck and stuff like that. And then he worked like a TV station as like a technician when I was growing up and stuff, but he was just like super political. So there was like always politics around. I never really like absorbed much of it though. Like I never really like drank any kind of like Republican Kool-Aid or anything like that. I really, as soon as I became political, I like moved like really far left. And then my grandfather, I think, was more of a, like I see a lot more of my politics today in my grandfather, even though my grandfather was pretty apolitical, but he was and remains a minister in the Church of the Nazarene. Which is a church that's like kind of like an offshoot of Methodism, really. And he the church was always extremely involved in the community, like doing just all sorts of community work, and like his church was like very much like a a hub of, the community that he operated in. So I think I looking back, I see a lot more of my current values in his experience, even though that work, he wouldn't have characterized it as political.
Right.
What were those Iraq War like I assume mostly you're talking about like, going to protests and shit like that. What were those like?
Yeah. Man, I remember this is like one of the moments that like really stood out to me of why liberals like really suck. Was like, I remember we were at I think this was like 2004 or something. There was like some like RNC type thing happening in St. Petersburg at the time. And I remember there was like this big protest, and my friends were like, oh, there's a protest downtown, let's go check it out. And so like we went down there, and there was a bunch of people there, like, and it was like on, like the convention center was across the street. So we were like on the other side of the street, kind of taking up the sidewalk and then into the side street and stuff. So there was like probably like a good 200 people there protesting. And it was like, saying shit like, when do we want justice? When do we want it now? And then at some point, we were there for like an hour. At some point, this one of the organizers, she was like, let's take the barricades. They can't stop us all. And then she walked across the street, and me and my buddy were like, yeah, fucking let's do it. Let's get some action. And like it was like us and like 14 other people out of the hundreds. And I was just like, oh, so like when we said we wanted justice now, we didn't mean like now. We meant like, some point in the future. But yeah, I mean, it was a lot of stuff like that. I mean, a lot of protests. I did some like food not bombs stuff when I was in Florida.
That was my next lead in, was like, because I had the same thing. Is like I would go to protests and like food not bombs and shit, and I was like, well, I guess this is what this is. Like, this is what you can do about stuff, is like, get yelled at because you got a ride to food not bombs and you didn't take a bike.
Right, exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of that kind of like, mine wasn't like super performative, I guess, in that way. But yeah, there was like a very big, that was like super, I remember that being super big. Like bike culture was like massive. And at least in the political scene that I was in, was like everyone biked and everyone shit on everybody for driving a car or taking the bus or something.
Yeah, cars are coffins, dude.
Even for taking the bus?
Exactly. Yeah, like, I mean, if like, it's just, people are crazy.
That Lux life on the bus.
Families should take all 4 of their kids on their bike with them if they have to go get groceries.
Now we live in the era of the numtot. It's
which they should get from a dumpster.
What was the role of like music in the political subculture that you were involved in?
I mean, it was. I mean, they went like hand in hand. They like the music scene, like the punk. I was super involved with the punk scene, which was really my like foray into politics in general. Even though it was actually super, very like the politics were kind of performative in a lot of ways.
Right.
Looking back on it, but there was all kinds of like shows that were happening around there. So there was like a very like the politics scene and the music scene like were very much hand in hand. Although not really as much of a transfer. Like they were kind of like, you had some people who were involved in the punk scene that would go to some political stuff, but there really wasn't. It wasn't like a thing where it's like people were perceived as being like fake if they weren't doing political organizing alongside going to punk shows. Like it was sort of like going to punk shows was the political organizing, I guess, so to speak.
Everyone just kind of smells and looks the same. It's like how I remember that. It was like there's not really any overlap, but the aesthetic is equally off-putting.
Yeah. But I did the whole damn thing when I was younger. I even went train hopping for a summer and stuff, and like I did the dumpster diving and all that shit. Like I was super involved in all that. Like that was and then as I got older, I like went into the workforce and stuff, and that's when I started doing organizing.
Do you have any dumpster diving pro tips from that time?
Dunkin' Donuts will always fucking have shit, dude. Like Dunkin' Donuts, at the end of the day, they have so many bagels and so many donuts and stuff. At the end of the day, like if you go in there, like after they close, like right after, you're gonna get two big trash bags full of some day old donuts and bagels and stuff. That definitely did that more than once for sure.
Dude, one time I remember dumpstering behind a gas station for the exact same reason. It was like Oh yeah, they throw the donuts out at the end of the day. They're like totally fine. Gonna pass out donuts to my stone friends at night. But they had thrown out like a whole case of those. It wasn't like 5 hour energy. It was like the 6 hours suck my dick or whatever the fuck. Like the like slightly better one, and went to a party and everyone drank those. It just felt like absolute dog shit.
I'm just like picturing
I guess
you.
if any tips is like if you wouldn't eat it normally,
Yeah.
don't eat it because it's out of a dumpster.
Yeah, I'm just picturing you like coming out from behind like a Circle K holding a trash bag full of nacho cheese. Like, who wants some, bruh? Yeah.
I remember once I was at this house in Baltimore. This was way back in the day, but they had dumpstered multiple cases of like Ottawalla, that juice stuff. I don't even know if they make that stuff anymore.
I don't
I
know.
think
That
they do.
shit was it was nasty, and like it was like all I drank for like a week and a half as I was like hanging out at the squat house or whatever, and it was just like the most disgusting. I was just like, can I have some water? And they were like, yeah, good luck with the tap, I guess. But,
Oh yeah, it leaves like a film in your mouth. I hate that stuff.
Yeah, man.
So gross.
I remember this is nasty as hell, but like the whatever protein powder they would put in that, like I would have like one sip of it and then it would be like I would just fart so bad that I couldn't be around anyone for like a week. It was like I just have to. That was my first experience with quarantine, was because of Ottawalla.
But people used to drink it because, like, skinny girls used to drink it because they thought it was healthy. And I'm like, it has more sugar than, like, Coke.
Mhm.
Like, it's
Right.
bad for you.
Yeah, there's in no
it
way
just
was it good
tastes
for you.
bad. Yeah, it's like, it's bad for you and it tastes bad and it still makes you fat. I don't know what they were doing. But I guess if it's green, people thought it was healthy.
Yeah, our punk
Yeah, it was
scene.
kind of like a.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say it was kind of like a glut in the market because it was like around mid 2000s, like Super Size Me and all this stuff. Like there was like this fast food restaurants were like attempting to sell like salads and shit, and so there was just like whatever, just it's green. There's a picture of a duck on it. You'll drink it. It's fine.
Yeah, the punk scene that me and MD were involved in, because you went to shows and stuff and you wore your SpongeBob shirt.
Yes. Yes, I wear shows.
Yeah, it was like there. I mean, I think probably there was some politics stuff that was completely, but like I had no access to it. I was just 12
I just
and
wanted
horny,
to get fingered.
and I would wear. I was like wearing my Volcom shorts and just saying prayers.
I was a total poser.
I wonder.
And
go ahead.
I think
even
just
knew
wanting
it.
to get fingered is like the most punk. So.
It's noble. Definitely noble. But I also put a cigarette out on my arm to impress people, and I do still have the scar. So aesthetically, I definitely nailed that.
Did you guys ever play the game where you put your forearms together and put a lit cigarette in between?
Yep.
Wait, what?
I never played it. I never played it because I'm not a dumbass, but I've seen people play.
Wait, what are you talking about?
I'll send you a picture. Forearm cigarette.
It's where like two usually. I mean, this wasn't even I guess I saw some people in the punk scene do this, but I mostly saw people at like my high school who were like total jock, like redneck,
right.
Idiots doing it. But it's like two guys will put their forearms together, and then they'll put a lit cigarette in between their forearms, and whoever pulls away first is a
big old pussy.
pussy.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd play that right now.
Dude,
you would
absolutely
win.
do that.
Yeah.
I would absolutely do that with Benjamin.
Yeah,
we'd just be on fire, just completely all the way. Like, you're gonna do it, pussy.
Yeah, I was like really into burning myself and like carving things into my arm with safety pins for a while. That was like the extent of my punk rock private all girls school life.
There was like a punk.
Any hotties names that you put in there?
No, just the dead Kennedys. And Jello Biafra is not a hottie. I saw him at Loyola with his whiny little voice. When the first time I did Adderall, I saw Jello Biafra do spoken word poetry at Loyola, and it was really pathetic.
Nice.
Didn't he go for like Warren or something like that?
Yes!
Like he made some like weird. It was like what the fuck? What happened?
He said he liked Bernie and Warren, but he liked Warren better. And he did the whole. God. Yeah, he was awful. And oh god, it was awful. I even tweeted about it, and some guy who liked Warren was like, well, I agree. Okay, I'm doing an impression of him. I can't.
Well, I agree. So you just
Well,
kind of
I
sound
agree.
like
Anyway.
you saw a ghost.
I know, but whatever.
Or like it's exactly the same as the dude from fucking B-52s.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, you mean Jello Biafra? Yeah, I was doing an impression of David Lewis, and you don't have to cut that because he knows what he responded, Michael. He responded to me on Twitter.
All right.
But anyway, but yeah, I couldn't believe it. I mean, because like if you like Warren, whatever. But like she's like the least punk rock candidate that there was. Like Amy Klobuchar is more punk rock than Warren.
No,
sure.
man, she's a full-on agent of chaos.
Yeah,
and I respect that.
I mean, she's bad. Like,
dude, not endorsing.
There are punk Nazis. Like, they're Nazis and they're bad. But like, punk rock is not always good. Like, there's good punk and then there's bad punk. But if you accept that like Nazis can be punk rockers, then Amy Klobuchar can be punk. But Elizabeth Warren is not in any way at all punk rock.
I mean, everyone
I think
who was
not endorsing Ayanna Pressley is pretty punk rock of her. That's a ballsy move.
Oh, that's
man.
what Warren did, right?
Yeah.
Warren was like, none of the squad. Y'all are dead to me. Y'all are 100% dead to me now.
Yeah, she rocks.
I mean, I get like, not. I just don't get it with Ayanna Pressley because it's like you guys are literally allies.
Yeah, I mean, Ayanna Pressley endorsed her, right? Yeah.
That's so weird.
Yeah, there was definitely like some.
She doesn't give a fuck, man. She's crazy.
Yeah. There was definitely some semblance of like a relationship between like the New Orleans punk scene and politics, but we were in the ska scene, which is 100% aesthetic and like dorky, like band nerd. Ska was just like an outlet, like a punk-ish outlet for people who played the clarinet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend who was, Mary Jacobs. Glaviano, you don't know Mary Jacobs. She was actually in the punk scene. She was like friends with Zach Quinn, who's in the band Pears, who like it's like a fairly successful punk band, like for a punk band. Anyway, so she was like in the real punk scene, and I didn't know her until college when I started hanging out with Deja because I made a cool friend. Anyway, so I realized how much I was not in the real punk scene because like Mary and I were talking about people that we knew. And we like knew like one or two of the same people, but for the most part, the real punk scene was a lot more political and a lot more like doing stuff other than going to shows. But Mary was talking to me about being a confused little like 12 or 13-year-old punk and how one time she was like fucked up in Metairie and she started cursing out paramedics.
Nice.
And she was like, fuck the paramedics. And then her friends were like, no, they're fine. They're literally, it's not cops. And she was just like, whatever, man. Like she was very defiant about it. Yeah.
They got utility belts. Fuck them.
Yeah, fuck them. But yeah, we used to go.
Paramedics are not workers, man.
No. Man, so much of what I thought punk was just watching boys skateboard at closed Toys R Us.
and smoking Jarum Blacks. That was big for me.
Oh man, no. I didn't smoke cigarettes until I was in high school, so I didn't really smoke cigarettes because I went to punk shows in like 8th and 9th grade.
Yeah. That's so funny.
My cigarette smoking only like I think by like a few months preceded my being in the punk. Like I started smoking when I was like 14 or something ridiculous like that, and then like was in the punk scene and then like just smoking constantly because I had just total access to it. I was smoking. Yeah. I smoked the Bugler back when it was like 50 cents for like a pound of tobacco or whatever prices there was.
Yeah.
And then, or is the golden age as I like to call it. And yeah, I smoked that like pretty much the whole time I lived in Florida till I was like 19 or whatever.
I had I had like one of those tech material aviator jackets that like flame retardant aviator jackets, and they have like zipper pockets on the arms, and every day I would roll 15 cigarettes and put them in my aviator jacket in the arm sleeve, like, in the sleeve pocket. Man, I was cool as shit.
Damn, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Wait, y'all look at my cats. They're being really cute together.
Okay.
Wait, can you see them?
Whoa.
Aw, they're the gray boys. Okay. Sorry, podcast.
There are cats that exist.
I'm sorry.
You can't see what's happening. There are two cats. They're being really cute.
They're in a circle like a yin and yang sign.
I was not at all ever interested in trying to be any part of any sort of like punk scene. Uh, I was just like on acid. Like, have you guys heard of Donovan? This shit rocks, man.
This shit is so hard, dude. This Donovan guy, he knows what's up.
Oh yeah. No, I remember I had to I first got into classic rock, and then everyone hated Led Zeppelin, like, so I had to pretend like I hated Led Zeppelin. It was so hard figuring out who I was when it was completely shaped not by what I liked but by what everyone else liked.
Right.
It was very
Why
hard.
do people hate Led Zeppelin?
People hated, like, people who were really into punk were like, I remember there was a lot of boys that lived in my neighborhood. I went to an all-girls school, and I didn't have like any friends, and so I tried to become friends with people in my neighborhood, which is mostly boys, and some of those were like punk boys, and I didn't really realize that they had terrible taste and were losers. And so like they were like, there's one of them is like still super into the Misfits, and he's like 37 years old, so
But that
like,
song about rape is so cool.
Exactly. I will say the Misfits do have some good songs.
What those fingers do, though,
No, he actually ended up sleeping with the only girl I ever dated, because we were both children. Anyway, so Brandon, I remember, was like, he got like a guitar tattoo when I was like 14 and he was 18, and I was like, wow, this guy is so cool. And so he like was where I got my knowledge of like what was cool and what wasn't. And then like it was probably like later in high school that I realized that you could just like whatever you liked and it didn't matter, and you don't have to like one type of music. But like I remember my mom
Not true, actually.
Yeah, not true. My mom would buy me like nice
ska or die.
My mom would buy me like nice basic shirts from like Gap and Old Navy, and I would take the tag out so people didn't know it was from Gap and Old Navy. Like, it was pathetic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that resonates. I mean, I just was surprised to sit here, because like Led Zeppelin, and I remember I was like crazy into Pink Floyd when I was like in high school,
Mm-hmm.
and super into Pink Floyd, super into Zeppelin, and everyone loved those bands. And so that stuff was like a total gateway to the punk scene in my town, for whatever reason that may be. I don't know.
See, the preppy boys liked classic rock. Preppy boys liked classic rock, and the like punk boys didn't, because I feel like the preppy boys liked it. But that was just my perception. That was my perception like from an all-girls school.
Have you guys heard of Donovan?
He rocks so hard, man. That Donovan, he fucking rules, man.
Yeah.
I
still believe that.
I feel like the transition, like, from MySpace to Facebook, and then Facebook to, like, Facebook being profile oriented to feed oriented, really changed how people define themselves. Like, it's less and less about like a list of bands and a list of movies. I think that the transition from OkCupid to Tinder also contributes to this phenomenon. Like, there are fewer and fewer opportunities to define yourself based on what you consume, man.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I have never recovered from the transition from MySpace to Facebook. My clout was never higher than the MySpace years.
Just every day on Facebook, you have to post again your top 8 friends.
Right. Here's that band lyric again. Here's that line from that song again. Here you go.
Yeah.
Oh wait, I bet I can find my MySpace online, but I can't access it because I don't have the password. Hold on.
I've tried looking for my old one, and it's sweet. I mean, a lot of them. If you haven't looked at it in the last like 4 years, it's probably gone.
Yeah. Yeah, they completely changed the format.
A lot of them are gone.
Yeah, I
really don't do this, because it's probably child pornography, and you're going to jail if you look it up.
Yeah, your own MySpace.
No, you can still see. It just says, it's just my picture from high school, and it says that the profile's locked. And I looked the exact same when I was in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not to brag.
Look, all right, just based on what you said on stage before, I'm like, don't look that up.
Yeah. Also, you can see the URL I chose for myself was shockingly predictable.
Love it. Nice. Dude.
I think mine was like,
you do look
will revolt for food, I think was mine. And then the 4 was the number 4, and like, yeah.
I
It
love
was
that.
really, everyone thought it was so cool. Everyone
That
thought it
is
was
really
like,
cool.
Mine was Michael
That running
fucking
guy is so
Glaviano, I
cool.
think.
I don't remember what mine was, but my instant messenger was Passion Muffin, and I'm still happy about that one.
Dude. Yeah, that
Mine
rocks.
was Whopper in Paris. It was a Pulp Fiction reference, so pretty cool.
Nice. The old Royale with cheese.
Oh wow, you do look exactly the same.
I look exactly the
Yeah.
same. I was born this way. I was born with this face.
Yeah. Yeah, you've basically been cursed with having the like body of an adult since you were like 8.5 years old.
It's true.
I think
I've
that
been
is
30
like
my whole life.
majorly traumatic, probably.
Yeah.
Just
Oh,
surrounded by children, surrounded by like 4.5 foot tall boys, and being
Seriously.
like, "Fuck me."
That's why I lost my virginity when I was 14, because I was just like, I've been shopping at Ann Taylor for 4 years. Like, can someone please have sex with me? I think I'm wearing a business suit.
I think I lost my virginity at 14 because like
'Cause you
once you
could.
turn someone on to Donovan, they're like, well, I guess I gotta.
Yeah.
I was
You know.
17, and it was after a Lily Allen show. After I drank a pitcher of beer for the first time.
Oh, amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That sounds disgusting.
Yeah. It was. Yeah.
Man, that
It was
rules.
bad for everyone involved.
All right, Ryan, how'd you end up in DC from Florida? Is there an in between there? Or is that?
Yeah, I lived in Boston for like 4 years, 4 or 5 years, something like that, which I do not recommend. And and I actually remember, I remember Ayanna Pressley was on the city council. I think she was like the president of the city council or something like that while I was there. So I had like, and we fucking didn't like her because she was a liberal.
Mhm.
And then had run-ins with Warren and stuff like that too. But yeah, so I lived there for a few years, and then I moved to DC. My wife's from here, so she grew up here, and we got married, and so we were like ready to put down, and we were like, we're at a stage now where we're putting down roots somewhere, and we do not want it to be Boston. So we moved to DC. We're like, this seems like a better move because we could be near family, and also there are jobs here, which is not the case in Florida. So
Wait, tell me, what's your wife's name?
Naima.
Okay. Never mind. I don't know any Naimas. I was gonna say, I always feel like I'm gonna know everyone who's from New Orleans, but I don't, like 80% of the time. So never mind. Where'd she go to school?
She actually grew up in DC. She grew up in
Oh, I thought you said my
Yeah,
wife's
yeah,
from
yeah.
here. Oh, okay, gotcha.
No.
Here
Yeah.
can refer to places that you aren't sometimes.
I know. I forgot you weren't in New Orleans. I'm sorry.
It's all good. Yeah, but she grew up in Prince George's County, which is where we live. So it's like right outside DC.
Right. Now I remember.
Yeah.
So you were part of, what was the socialist organization you were a part of in the like
Socialist
Boston
Alternative.
SA?
Yeah. So SA. Yeah. Y'all don't have SA there, right? Or like you did for like a second or something?
There might have been one. I don't know. I know some people. I'm from the Twin Cities, and I know some people that are still doing like SA stuff up there.
I worked for Ty Moore's campaign up there back in like 2013, whenever that was. I don't know if you heard about that one, but that was I worked for that.
That was like right as I was leaving, but
I
think I know someone that was also working on that campaign. I don't want to like say their name right now on this.
That's fine.
For other reasons, but tight. So how'd you end up like going from SA to DSA?
Well, I left SA in about 2015. I mean, I sort of like just gradually. A lot of people would leave like SA or like other groups like similar groups like the ISO or whatever. In very big ways, like these grand denunciations and like letters to the the working class of the world to do X, Y, Z or whatever. But I kind of just like gradually became disillusioned with the group. I was involved for from 2010 to 2015, and it was just sort of accumulation of like concerns and like just like eventually just kind of feeling like this isn't actually a very effective way to build a socialist movement. And this is like before DSA, like before DSA like blew up, I had only like heard of DSA. Like I had never met anyone that was in DSA. My understanding of them is that they were mostly like a reading group that wasn't like super, just they weren't at any of the protests I was going to. They weren't in any of the organizing meetings I was in. So I just like didn't really know much about DSA. But I did, but I just kind of just with SA just gradually like just felt like this is not a very, like what we're building is this specific organization. We're not building a workers movement, you know, like, and then the Bernie stuff happening around that time kind of like was like one of the nails in the coffin where it was like, cause they didn't endorse Bernie and they were like throwing everything into Shama Sawant, who's the city councilor that they have in Seattle. And they like, so they were like not doing Bernie. They were like discouraging members from doing Bernie because her re-election campaign was in 2015. But like at the same time trying to make it look like they had endorsed Bernie, they took up this very weird approach where it was like a sort of like a shell game to like trick people into thinking that they had endorsed Bernie, but didn't want to do it because of their feelings on the Democratic Party. And like just this very weird thing. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense. And I also have been kind of like thinking that this doesn't make sense for a while. So I'm going to go do Bernie instead. So I did like, so I was involved with People for Bernie for a while. And then I kind of just like took a break for a little bit. And like, cause I'd been doing like political organizing like nonstop for like 5 years. And so I was like, all right, I'm taking a break. Things are getting serious with my girlfriend who was then becoming my wife and stuff. And so I took a little break. And then when the DSA bump happened, I like went full bore on, I got back involved and been in DSA since then.
Word. We've only like, I think very, very briefly met once in New Orleans. Mm-hmm. But the reason I wanted to have you on is because I feel like you've been like very involved with like how the organization in like a national sense, like since it blew up. And it seems like now there's a lot of questions about like the future of what the organization is going to be, since they did our boy Bernie real dirty.
Dirty.
And like, not that anyone was like really hinging on him like winning, I guess, but the fact that the campaign ended the way it did is like obviously like a real like blow. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts on like what the organization could become, what you think it should become, and then maybe like sort of like an overview of like what the like caucuses, what the formations within DSA are for people that are like completely unfamiliar with that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways it's too early to tell exactly what the next year will look like. I think that there is, I think, something of a consensus from what I've been seeing in some of the conversations I've been having, and also there's a lot of like a lot of DSA chapters have their leadership elections around this time, so it is sort of a little bit easier right now, like this particular like from like this month between like April and May, to get kind of a sense of where members are at than normally you would be able to. And it does kind of seem like the consensus, like you see a lot of stuff on Twitter, of course, right? Like you see like, everyone kind of shooting off about this or that thing or whatever. But it really kind of seems to me like by and large, DSA members view the Sanders campaign as like a success, obviously not in like the sense of like, he's not in the White House, or he's not the nominee at least. But that it was still like tremendously successful, and that this approach that DSA took to the Sanders campaign, which is really pretty unique, like among the left, like there, as far as I know, no other organization with socialist in the name endorsed Bernie in 2016. Mm-hmm. Like it was just DSA, like Social Alternative, the ISO, Solidarity, like all these other socialist organizations that are like kind of known on the left as like the socialist organizations none of them endorsed Bernie. Like they all, and like DSA got involved like super early. DSA got involved when Bernie was still like considering whether or not he should run in 2015. And that approach like turned out to be very effective. And like the approach is kind of, in my feeling, is that it's gotten actually much more nuanced since then. Like there's that Seth Ackerman article, Blueprint for a New Party, that came out like right around the time the bump happened. That was like really widely read. That was really kind of a breakthrough in my opinion. Like it's a pretty stellar piece. I mean, it's not like super detailed, but it's a very detailed sort of analysis of like why this sort of inside outside strategy is effective. And you know, since then it's sort of even gotten more developed, I think. And so anyway, that's sort of a long-winded way of kind of saying like that I think what DSA has been doing the last 4 years, 2 years, and through the Bernie campaign, is kind of a very unique approach that it's taken. I think members have kind of drawn a conclusion that it's successful and that they want to build on that success rather than like some like, you know, dramatic splitting or like a third party or something like that, although there's lots of discussions about a third party. So some of it remains to be seen.
What do you think about the idea of like specifically DSA itself just shifting and becoming a political party that, you know, doesn't drop like any of the other organizing that it does, but it is a actual membership party? Because I mean, I don't think any living Americans know what it's like to have a membership party. Like even like the Green Party is not one, really.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that in order to have, because I think this is going to be probably one of the big debates in, you know, the coming year, is, you know, what sort of should DSA be a party is going to kind of be like one of the running themes, I think, of a lot of debates. And that is really, asking that question in that way is kind of papers over a lot of really specific questions that kind of have to be worked out in my view. Like, you know, like the United States simply is not a parliamentary system. Like in, you know, if in like Britain or France, if you were going to like register to be a member of the Socialist Party, you would have to go to the Socialist Party's, you know, party headquarters and go in there and register, pay dues and whatnot. In the U.S., you do it like when you get your driver's license, like you register with the state about which party you're going to affiliate to. Like it's just a totally different system than that. But I think that a lot of people in the U.S. still, especially a lot of socialists, have these sort of like assumptions that like, well, this is how socialism, you know, socialist parties have, you know, won, you know, government seats in these countries. So like we need to kind of imply a parliamentary system that doesn't actually exist here, and would actually be it'd probably be easier to just get Soviets than it would be to like have a parliamentary system in the United States. It would require such like an overhaul of the political system in this country to do so. So I mean, I think that it's sort of the question can go in a lot of ways. Like, is whether the question is like, should DSA have its own ballot line, like a Socialist Party ballot line, that we only use that? That's something that I'm against, and I don't really even see the feasibility of that kind of approach. Even like organizations like Social Alternative have really not even attempted to do that outside of places where they have nonpartisan races anyway, like Minnesota and or in Minneapolis and like Seattle and so on, like places where they can kind of don't really have to fully address it. So even like the most ardent proponents of that approach have not run like third party in like Georgia or something like that. So I don't think that there's even that much of an appetite for it personally, although I think that there's lots of discussion about it. Now, the bigger question is, I think, will DSA become a primarily electoral formation, or whether there will be more of like, I guess you call it like a fusion type organization like they have in Latin America, where you have electoral parties, but they also have like really concrete and deep connections and roots to community organizations, to labor unions and so on. I think that's the much more bigger question. And also like where such a party will come from, whether it actually DSA should be that party or whether it should be from some, you know, coalition or merger that happens sometime in the future. So there's a lot of like directions that question can go.
Yeah, I mean, my instinct is that uh like this is a little bit more urgent than I think a lot of people are like willing to say it is.
Mm-hmm.
Um and there it's not going to come from any other organization. Uh I don't think. So, if that doesn't start to happen with DSA now, I feel like people are going to look back in like 5 years and be like, "Oh, we waited too long." Like
Mm-hmm.
it's basically like there's especially in this moment there's going to be this mass exodus, and like there's no automatic way to like shift the like Bernie infrastructure to DSA, or like not even that you need that infrastructure, but like the movement that it's built is significantly larger than DSA, and there's like nothing really there to absorb it, and I just don't see that happening unless there's not a movement towards like a purely like electoralism like driven organization, but at least a party that people can identify like in the media, like the way that people like can point to it and talk about it, because I just don't think you're going to get those people any other way besides like sort of national politics, because that's how people engage with politics in the United States, unfortunately.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one thing I've noticed, and it's sort of bizarre to me because I feel like you do, like that it's like if there's going to be like a mass membership organization that's like got roots in communities and unions and all sorts of stuff, it's going to be DSA. Like I feel like we have to build DSA. Like this is the organization that we're in. The people coming from the Sanders campaign, like whether they were people that were working for Sanders or they were canvassing as volunteers, these thousands of people, like they're not going into some sort of like waiting room for some future merger organization to like fall out of the sky. Like they're joining DSA. Like, but it feels like there's like this real resistance from a lot of people to just say like, yes, let's build DSA. Like, let's make DSA a mass organization. Let's, develop our electoral program. Let's develop our labor program. Let's come up with ways that we can like play that role of like being a real like, permanent organization that has deep social roots and a real base. And people talk about these same kinds of things, like about why we need a workers' party and why we need, a militant labor movement and all these other things, but they like are just like really resistant to just say like, and let's make DSA that, like let's go do that. Like it's just I don't get that. I don't get why that is.
Yeah, it makes no sense to me, and it seems like time is like running out.
Right.
Like I don't know.
Do you mean like the planet's we're gonna die?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like basically things.
When you say time's running out, you mean humanity doesn't have enough time? Is that what you mean, Benjamin?
Yeah, and like basically the way the world is positioned, if it doesn't happen in the U.S., I don't see it happening.
And we're most responsible. Well, we're some of the most responsible, so like we have to be the ones to
Yeah, I mean we're the belly of the beast, like, and as marginal as DSA is, as marginal as even like the broader left is, which is like, basically was almost entirely captured by the Bernie campaign. I think anyone who wasn't a part of that really has like no reason to call themselves on the left. Like we have essentially no power, and like things have to drastically reshape themselves. Otherwise, like, it's basically like the fate of the planet at stake, which is crazy alarmist and sounds insane, but I think is demonstrably true.
I agree. I don't want to not agree because I think like you are correct to feel panicked, but I also don't think that like, I don't know. Even if it is true, I'm just pretending like we can withstand 8 more or 12 more or whatever years of bad leadership because now that it's clear that we're not going to have Bernie, like I just know it's going to either be bad or worse, so I'm just trying I'm just trying to live in every 5 days. And also, when people say that there's stuff that you can do outside of electoral politics, people keep saying that on Twitter. I feel like most people don't know what that means. Like me, like I don't know, because I'm not an organizer. I barely do anything. But there's a lot of people like me who might phone bake occasionally, who are more involved than the average person, but like it's not their life. Like, what is there's more to it than electoral politics mean? Do you mean like organizing workplaces or?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think a lot of people when they say that they're saying that to discredit electoral organizing. To be frank, but I mean there's no question that there's lots of other things that we have to do. Like I kind of see electoral organizing as like electoral organizing is yes like one terrain of struggle, but it is an absolutely indispensable one that we like can't afford to ignore if we're going to build a dynamic left movement. But
I think that that's more relatable. Like I think that that's true, and also I think that it's easier to bring people in because they are, like Benjamin was saying, it's the only system people have ever engaged in. You know?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. That is politics to most people. To most people, politics is I vote for the Democrat or the Republican, or sometimes I'm an independent or something.
Right.
It's just like we can't. Like we just can't ignore that. And I think that the reason people are resistant to electoral politics is probably the same reason people don't want to just say we should build DSA. DSA should be this like mass organization, is because like electoral politics are really fucking messy and complicated. Like they involve like really difficult lines that you have to kind of walk. You have the risk of fucking it up, and then like if you fuck it up, like there's like consequences for that. Like and it's like, and I think that similar with DSA, like DSA is messy. DSA is not like this perfect organization that fell out of the sky with like some Lenin to lead us or whatever. Like it's messy. Like the last 5 years or whatever of like building and sustaining DSA has been messy, and it's but I just don't think that there is no politics that is just like clean and perfect, and it just doesn't work that way. But I mean there is definitely like huge other areas of struggle, like especially the labor movement that socialists have to be involved in. There's I think community organizing is like really critical, whether that's developing mutual aid networks, or that's disaster relief or what have you, like or just like just having DSA be like a place that like hosts like social events that people want to go to and are fun. Like those things are all things that grow our social base and our credibility as like an organization that actually represents the community that we're organizing in, and those things are all essential, and electoral organizing can do that as well. So like I think all those things are critical.
I was just like, am I missing out on something huge? It was, that was a good explanation.
Yeah, I mean, I think it DSA does have to do like all of that stuff, and it's bizarre to ever hear like pushback on like growth being a priority. It's like I don't know what anyone thinks 70,000 volunteers can accomplish. Like that's not a real movement. It's definitely like impressive based on like what came before it for sure, but seems like things have to go fast. I think there needs to be like even just like DSA should try and establish like community centers in the way that like parties like traditional like socialist European parties used to do. Like if kids could go to a fucking concert at the socialist hall, like why not? Like
fucking A, absolutely.
But you can't do that without the kind of funding it would take, like to have millions of people in your organization.
Yeah,
I'm like one real like lacuna or like absence post Bernie is a like central topic of national conversation, and like I'm curious if I don't know how much of how cognizant you guys are of like the machinations of national, but like is there any sort of, because like the country is so fucking big that there are these communities that are completely siloed off from anyone involved in leftism, and like there's only so much driving you can do with 70,000 people. And like, so is there any sort of idea? Because I've been thinking a lot about Occupy and like how all of the media coverage that it got was pretty much totally contemptuous, and yet it still expanded the conversation significantly, the national conversation significantly. And I'm wondering if like there's any sort of, because I think as a whole, American journalism will be hostile to basically anything that we do. Like, yeah, anyway, whatever. Is there any sort of strategy that kind of bubbling up for national communications type stuff?
I think that there's been a lot of focus on the reaction to coronavirus and how we adapt to that. I mean, we're sort of in like this is sort of like the worst possible way the Bernie campaign could have ended in some ways. I think in some ways that it's presented opportunities that otherwise wouldn't have been. Like looking back, like 3 years from now, we might be saying something like, oh, like, wow, like that was like, that's crazy that we had this sort of break of luck that this all happened that way or whatever. But right now it definitely sucks ass really bad. But, like to kind of go from like, like the high of like the Nevada primary where it looked like Bernie was like this unstoppable juggernaut that was just going to like, crush Pete Buttigieg in his old fist to like him getting just totally just eaten by Biden, like just getting totally like, rat fucked. And then the coronavirus and like us all having like to completely change our lives and so on. So, that is, I think, been disorienting. I think it's the reality in some ways, like how could it not be? And so some of the reaction has been, in terms of DSA, at least, like, how do we react to the coronavirus? Like, pressuring, federal government or state and municipal governments for like relief, to, doing the right thing. I mean, there's still just tons of things like, forget about the healthcare crisis that's going on, trying to deal with just the sheer magnitude of the pandemic. That aside, just like the economic fallout of, millions of workers being laid off, and, trying to be like basically crammed into this unemployment system that was like very clearly designed to discourage workers from collecting unemployment. Right. And now millions of them desperately needing relief and finding it difficult to get. I mean, some of the projects that I've seen emerge in DSA in the last few months that are national projects have been around labor. There's been two main projects that I've seen come out of the Labor Commission for DSA. One is the Unemployed Restaurant Organizing Project, which has already seen like some pretty like significant success in New Orleans for one. I think that there was that relief package that the city granted of like a big sum to workers there. Benjamin probably know more about that than I would. And then also in Denver, like there was the Denver DSA chapter was able to like mount this like really incredible campaign where they were like, mobilizing, like basically they put out a petition like unemployed restaurant workers deserve relief, cancel rent, not like freeze it, not just, push it back a month, like cancel rent forgiveness. And they got like thousands of workers to sign up to this petition and were able to mobilize them into like a public campaign. And then inside of like a month, we're able to like get the city council to pass a resolution basically calling on the governor to cancel rent. So now they're in sort of a second phase where they're, focusing on the state level in Colorado to call on the governor to cancel it, which he has the power to do. So we've seen things like that. There's also that's something that's like being developed into a national campaign in DSA. So like there's dozens and dozens of chapters that are signing up to start basically doing that kind of work, basically mobilizing unemployed workers. I think a lot of people are like really inspired by the unemployment councils that the Communist Party was involved in like the 30s and 40s and so on, the work that they were able to do in like responding to their own crisis. And then there's also been like the Emergency Worker Organizing Committee, which is another national DSA project. Basically, DSA is like partnering with like United Electrical Workers, which is a national labor union, to basically connect workers that are in like precarious situations because of coronavirus. Like people probably seen like the way that like Amazon, for example, has reacted to the coronavirus is just like typical like evil corporation in a movie, basically, is what they fucking do pretty much whenever there's a crisis they have to deal with, like hiding the numbers of people infected with COVID, like having people work and, basically unsafe and like, just doing everything to avoid accountability to keep like, throwing workers onto a big machine that just eats them alive. And so, workers in those kinds of workplaces and all kinds of workplaces are seeing their employers like not actually respond in the way that they should to the pandemic. And so DSA has been working with United Electrical to like make sure that they are able to organize, and if they need support, that they can get it. So those have been two projects DSA has been involved in the last few months that I've seen really have a lot of interest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that like for a strategy to make national headlines, rent cancellation would, for sure. Huh.
Yeah,
yeah, definitely.
I think it has to be like massive, giant national coordinated things happening. Like, I mean, I get another like tendency I just don't understand in DSA is the tendency to like continue to allow chapters to just be completely like siloed and work at just the local levels, because it's like, of course that's gonna happen, but to not even like want top-down coordination, like to be a socialist organization against centralization is like just there's so many people who think that way, and I don't know what world people are living in where they care enough to get involved with these kinds of things, but don't feel like it's like a fight for like our lives. Like,
right. Yeah, it's weird. There's a lot of stuff, especially with this like the discussions around electoral organizing and stuff that I've seen on like Twitter, for example. It just kind of strikes me how like weird some of these impulses are based totally on like assumptions about like that it like this assumption that like with electoral, for example, that like, oh yeah, of course, like in every chapter in the country there are people who just want to like, you know, or just turn it into like there's like some impulse or natural entropy to DSA chapters where like they become like just sham electoral, just careerist bullshit, and that like we must you know do XYZ dramatic thing that's crazy and probably wouldn't work to you know push back on this tendency. And it's like I don't really see any like DSA chapters that are like talking about endorsing Joe Biden right now. Like I really just don't. I don't know of any. And maybe they're out there. I don't know about them. Like, or that like coordinated, like you were saying, Benjamin, like coordinated activity like between national and like locals, and like so we could punch above our weight and like pool our resources. That will like turn into some kind of like fascist dictatorship or something. Because I mean, if it did, like people would probably just leave. Is my guess. Like if they were
exactly,
they wouldn't like get chained to a clipboard and like sent out. You know what I mean? Like it's, I don't know. It seems like alarmist to the point where it impedes any kind of constructive discussion about what is actually most effective and what makes sense. I don't know.
So people are actively, so it's not just a result of people like doing what's easiest and most accessible to them. It's like a result of people being actively against centralized like projects.
No hierarchy,
like
bro.
Top down.
I think it's both. I think it's honestly, I think it's both. I think that when my sort of, I guess, analysis is that when DSA first kind of popped off in 2016, you know, a lot of the people who were immediately attracted to it were activists, were people who had already done, you know, had years under their belt of, you know, organizing or doing different projects, you know, and often, you know, because there aren't any other mass organizations in the United States, like oftentimes, you know, in some cases that was labor unions, but a lot of times it's NGOs or things like that. And I think that not necessarily in like a nefarious way or anything like that, I think just by, you know, a sort of organic process, like those organizers built chapters in their own image. They built chapters that were most effective and conducive to what would be expedient for them, which is like, you know, if you're someone who's an activist who's like been doing this for years, like what you want is a very clean transmission belt between a volunteer base and the campaigns that you already are like have a plan for and already have connections and networks and all that other stuff. Like you've got all that stuff. Like what you need is like bodies. So like, I think this sort of like siloed, ad hoc sort of decentralized horizontalist structure that DSA kind of ended up with in some ways was like not really the result of some kind of ideological impulse against, you know, the dictatorship of, you know, the leadership or something. I think it developed into that. But I think it started as just DSA just being a reading group of about, you know, 12 chapters across the country, going from that to thousands of members in the span of a few months. And then on top of that, like an activist layer that just sort of didn't really know what else they would build other than this kind of organization. And just because, and so it's like become a process of kind of trying to untie that knot and like think like, no, like, let's not just do what is immediately like would work in this moment. Like, let's have a longer view of what will be sustainable and what will bring in the most members. Like, you know, members don't want to just be, you know, showing up to a chapter meeting and have it be sort of a campaigns fair every time of like, oh, I think I'll have a little bit of the mutual aid project, and I think I'll have a little bit of the labor, and like, I think members want like substantive discussion, debate. They want to feel like they have some kind of impact on decisions, but ultimately I think they also want a direction. I think they want to know what, like, if I go to someone's meeting, I don't want you to come to me and say, what do you think we should do? I'm here because I want to know what the fuck you want. What do you want to do? Like, I'm here to decide if I want to do what you want to do, you know? But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people have like a natural tendency to not want to like overstep, especially people like on the left tend to be like more, I guess, I don't know, this maybe is like a dumb characterization, but I think tend to be like more like thoughtful, considerate people who like want input. But yeah, people just want to like, I think it's why like there are a lot of, you know, even like going back to like Iraq war protests and shit like that, there's a lot of these like big actions that appeal to people that make them feel good about themselves, like going to protests and shit like that, like where you like a ton of people show up and do something. And I think people want that. And it's like there's like a lot of harm to thinking about organizing that way and people conceiving of like being part of something in that way. But you have to at least give them a little bit of like feel good, do something, just be told what to do.
Yeah.
Fucking daddy. We need to be daddy, you know? Like
Here's like a maybe a tinfoil hat type of question, but it seems to me that the more, and I basically agree that some sort of centralized organization would go a really long way, but like there is ample precedent for sabotage in American socialist movements by cops, right? So how do you create a organization with some sort of centralization of power and inoculate it against cops, basically?
Saboteurs you're talking about?
Yeah.
When they come into the meeting, you just got to ask them, "Are you a cop?"
They got to tell you, dude.
It's the law; they have to do it.
That should be on the application form. Are you a cop?
Right? Are you a cop? You got to tell us if you are, or if you're a paramedic. Because if you're a paramedic, then you can't join either.
I just spat water all over my laptop.
But I honestly don't know. Like, I mean, it's like it's a given that there are like you know, agents of the state in DSA. Like there are agents of DSA. Like, I mean, now we're seeing like the full extent because of like some dedicated activists. Like one of the people on the steering committee of my chapter in DC, Chip Gimmons, has been like very studious, like part of like this you know, journalists and like academics who are like, you know, putting in FOIA requests from the State Department about like to basically, and it's only now getting revealed the full extent to which the state like police forces had infiltrated the Occupy movement and like how much they had, you know, what they had done as far as like, you know, a lot of it was surveillance. A lot of it was like surveilling leading organizers and so on. And some of that had came out, like I remember after Occupy, some of that was coming out like right after. And it was sort of like, at the time, it was sort of like just sort of like legends or like you know, rumors that people would spit around, but now it's coming out that it was 100% the case.
Right.
So I mean, it's a given. I think that at the very least, you know, there are police agents that are like surveilling and keeping tabs on what DSA is doing, that are, you know, just basically just tracking what we're doing. At the very least, there probably is like people who are like involved. But it's just very difficult. I mean, how do you tell? Like, I mean, no one has been. I've seen a lot of people get accused of being cops or whatever, and I haven't seen anything that's been like, oh, this definitively was, a cop or whatever, even though we know that pretty much for certain that it is the case. So it's like, for me, it seems like sort of like, what is the cash value of that assumption? Like, how do we know? How do we? It seems difficult to plan our work or our models around that. What I will say is that I think it's way easier for, I think Occupy is a great example of this. It's way easier for anybody to infiltrate an organization that is like kind of loose and everything's sort of just horizontal and everything's kind of just, ad hoc, like, oh, like, do you want to organize the potluck? Oh yeah, great. Yeah, I'll do it. Like, and that is shown from like the stuff, not even cops, but like what, organizations like Project Veritas have done in DSA chapters. And like my chapter was one of them that got like infiltrated and like all sorts of shit went down. And it was like, it was crazy. And it also kind of showed that like, yeah, like someone who wants to kind of, and that was more of like a smash and grab. Like they weren't like doing long-term surveillance or anything. Like they were, what they tried to do is get in there,
get a soundbite,
ingratiate themselves with, organizers and stuff. And then get some like, recordings or footage of them saying something kind of like, wacky or whatever, or something that could be implied to be illegal or something.
Yeah.
And then they leave and then they do an expose on it on their website or whatever. So just from those that are like, where they're revealing themselves, we see that, it's actually pretty easy to ingratiate yourself to a group like that. But part of that, that's a risk that's just never going to go away either. Like the Communist Party was about as centralized as you can get. And they had like hundreds of people, of like cops working, like doing like party business on a regular basis.
Right.
And like, so it's just like, I think there's on both sides, people who are like against and for centralization, like can make a case that like, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's the fucking state. Like if they want to like fuck with us, they're probably going to be able to do it,
Mm-hmm.
Right. But what was your DSA chapter doing with aborted fetuses that they caught you on?
Smoking them. Smoking them.
No, man, you don't get the adrenochrome that way, man. You gotta
torture
chow
them.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah. We would take them, put them in our vape pens and whatnot.
So, I'm going to talk about dumb stuff now. But you have a lot of, you're good at Twitter. You're good at online.
Am I?
I mean, yeah, I feel like you are since I've been following you. And which is like a week, but because Benjamin said that you had a good Twitter and that you were cool. It's
been a great week for me. I'll tell you that. I mean, I've been really on this week, so.
Yeah. But anyway, I was going to say like, how do you think Twitter has been good and bad for DSA stuff?
Well, I think right now it's like crazy, but part of it's also like, I mean, people are definitely going to town on each other for like just no really good reason.
No reason, right?
Like,
yeah.
Yeah. There's been a lot of like every other day there's like some, and I've fucking participated in it. I mean, I'm going up and down the walls. I'm bored to tears over here. So of course I'm like, yeah, fuck that guy. Whatever he said, that's bullshit.
And sometimes it's really fun.
I mean, bullying is so fun. I mean,
it's so fun.
There's a reason that it's popular.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's, so I mean, I think part of it, like the last couple of months for sure, like it's just been like everyone kind of taking turns, like taking a crack at each other. Like there was the dumb, like Chapo is fascist thing. And then,
right.
True and On Pod, like I saw yesterday, like clap back with like whatever, like, oh, actually you're an agent of the Gates Foundation or something like that.
Yeah, I saw that.
They hit the LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. So yeah, I mean, and it feels like every other day there's like some, like, I feel like I'm like waking up with the thing, like, okay, who are we, like, who's like the main character on Twitter today? Like, who are we all upset about?
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's like, in terms of how it has affected DSA, I mean, I think it's more, you know, a lot of, there's been in the past years, and not so much actually since 2019, but I think like in 2017, 2018, which looking back were like the really, like it's really, DSA is a lot different than it was in 2017, 2018. Like that's when it was like fucking super, like it sucked, like it was really bad. like everything, like the craziness and like the just scandals and like all just insanity happening, like compared to then, like to like any controversy in CSA is like, this is nothing. But people, there's a lot of discussion about it. And like, I think it's more a symptom of the broader problem that we have, which is that we're an organization that doesn't really have a center, doesn't really have a political core to it, that is commiserate with our size, basically. Like in other mass organizations across the world, like you would have, if you were pissed about something, then what would probably happen is like you would go to your chapter meeting and you would like, there'd be a debate and discussion and whatever. And those discussions, like every chapter meeting, would get reported to your regional organization, your district organization, and up the chain. Like, so like if those kinds of things those debates were happening all across the country, so it wouldn't just be horizontal communication of people just kind of yelling at each other from the grassroots. It would like, there are mechanisms in those kinds of organizations, whether it's like the Workers' Party of Brazil or like the Communist Party of India or what have you, like where they're like, those things are getting filtered up the chain. And so like the leadership knows like, oh, fuck, like they're pissed about whatever it is, the pension fund or whatever. We need to address this. We need to do something about this. Like, and then if they don't do it good enough, there's like mechanisms to like, throw them out, throw your leadership out, or change something up or whatever. Like there's some kind of connective tissue between just a chapter in a town and the national body or whatever,
Right.
So I think that the Twitter stuff is really just like, it's a symptom of that bigger problem. And there's many symptoms of that problem, in my opinion, that we just don't have. We have the skeleton of an organization, but we don't have the muscle tissue that would really like be appropriate for an organization of our size in any other country, I think.
So sorry to interrupt. Are y'all hearing the clipping in the microphone or in the speakers, or is it these headphones?
I think it might be those headphones.
Okay, shoot.
I'm not hearing it.
Are they very dirty? Did you get the dirty ones?
I got the dirty ones. I gave Benjamin the cleaner ones.
I washed those probably 100 times. So I think they're.
Oh yeah, and you can see where the wire's exposed. I'm gonna order some of these.
Sick.
I'm gonna order the old type.
That rocks.
Do they still make
there's your problem?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. This is freshly a microphone. I mean a headphones wearing podcast. It's been a whole thing. How are you?
Yeah, my brain sucks and I can't think if I can't hear myself talking.
Yeah.
So I'm just always talking. So Michael has been mad at me because I have been too stupid to wear headphones for our like entire quarantine recording.
We got it under control.
These work. Yeah, these are good.
Okay, cool. I was just gonna ask.
These are just fucking like earrings, basically.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And then if you get bored, you can do the iPod dance. Where you like dance with the white cord. Remember that? Epic branding. Yeah. That rocked.
What is the advantage of the earbuds? Like those iPod earbuds that like everyone has, like what is the advantage of the ones that have like no cord?
Yeah.
Okay,
why do people wear those over ones that just have cords?
Honestly, my husband got them for me, and even though they were expensive and I should have been grateful, he just gave them to me on my birthday, which is Halloween. My birthday is November 1st, so he was just hammered and just handed me
She's a ghost.
Yeah, he just handed me unwrapped AirPods, and I was like, fuck you, I don't even want these. And he was like, no, you run. And at the time, he had a job where he was making a lot more money than me, so I was like, you spent $160, big whoop, you know what I mean? But I'm very harsh about getting gifts.
I see that.
I'm an only child. I need some thought. But anyway, but then I ended up loving them because like it's one of those things where they stopped working. Okay, I had them for 3 years, which is longer than they usually last. And then the battery sucks, so they die after 15 minutes. And now I just use the normal headphones with the cord, and there's no difference. But when you are using them, you feel like you need them because you can like move your arms more when you run. I run.
Yeah.
So like they're.
Yeah, I don't run.
Okay. I mean,
I avoid situations where I may be called on to run. Actually.
Yeah. So yeah, I definitely think that like the only benefit is if you're a runner that has very long arms. If you're constantly yanking out your headphones. But like
that's a very specific market, I think.
Right. But now that I have the corded ones again, I'm very happy. It makes no difference to me. So
I didn't even know you had to charge them. That's a whole nother pain in the ass.
Oh yeah.
And they die.
They come in like a little suppository that you put them in. Yeah, like that.
Oh, nice.
And then you can
just right at the ass then. And then
exactly. It's methane powered.
Good.
That's how you charge them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice.
I would absolutely have those if that worked. So quit lying.
Yeah. I do all the dishes in my household, and so when I lean against the counter and I have the cord, it tugs at my ears a little bit, so naturally that is unacceptable. Yeah.
See, it's nice though when if you wear a bra, you always have a cell phone holder.
I might try that.
Yeah, you should get a sports bra just for that, because then you can just have the cord, but the cord is tucked into your bra, so they're basically like AirPods.
Yeah, dude. These mosquito bites need some coverage because I wear some sheer shirts.
Yeah. Honestly, men should wear sports bras. They're great.
Why?
Yeah, wait.
You can put your phone in them. It rules.
That's cool. You can put money in them.
Is that the trade-off? Is that the trade-off for having pockets?
Yeah, there you go.
Guys have pockets.
Even when I have pockets, I prefer the bra because it's much more secure. You can put money in the lining of it when you run.
Yeah, and then if someone pickpockets you, you can at least punch them in the face. Even
you can also get sexually assaulted.
Right.
Yeah, so
exactly.
It's good if you want that. Yeah.
Sick. So, MD, you have a hard out time of 8 minutes from now. Should we wrap it up?
If y'all are cool with that, or if y'all want to go after I leave.
Oh yeah, fuck, man. I said I was gonna do that too.
Okay.
The same thing.
All right.
It's our buddy's birthday, and we're gonna go. I guess what, like honk at him from a car.
Yeah. And you can like get out and talk from far away. I think.
Yeah.
Like that's what we did for my grandmother's birthday.
Yeah, and you can drink in a car.
I can drink with Troy.
Ryan, how have you been?
I drive way better. Huh?
How have you been handling the stay-at-home shit? You going crazy?
It's not too bad. To be honest, like the last year and a half, I've just been traveling like crazy. Like I was working for the Teamsters Union last year, and that was just constantly travel. They do what's called 10-4s. So you're on the road 10 days, you're home 4 days, and you go all back and forth like that. And I have a young daughter. My daughter's 2. And so I like never got to see my wife or my kid, and I hated it. I loved the job, but just the travel was just such a pain.
Yeah.
And then from then I got the job I work now. I work for the Teachers Union in Montgomery County, and I go back and forth. It's like about an hour, could be as much as 2-hour drive to get there or home some days. So I was just always gone. So I actually dig that I get to just be home with my like wife and kid all the time. Like it's actually really pretty cool. Other than that, yeah, I'm bored as shit. That's why I've been playing like aside from political work, which I've kept myself pretty busy with different organizing projects. Other than that, like for like spare time, I'm playing like, I'm such like an old man that like I play when it's like, oh, I should play video games. I like bought a bunch of games that were popular like when I last played video games, which was like 10, 15 years ago. And so I'm playing I've been playing like Age of Empires and shit like that.
Hell yeah.
Like nobody plays anymore. I've been playing like Age of Mythology. Just like games like that, like the Final Fantasy X or whatever, like just so that's been I've become basically I'm a gamer. Basically I'm
nice. Nice.
Yeah, gamer with a family is like the ideal like don't leave the house situation. You've got to figure it out, man.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you have anything you want to plug, Ryan?
I would encourage folks to get involved with the DSA labor projects I mentioned earlier. There's if you go onto DSA's website, or if you're subscribed to emails, national emails, then you're getting emails that have like links to the Emergency Worker Organizing Committee and the Unemployed Restaurant Worker Project. Both of those are like awesome organizing campaigns that you can get involved in, your chapter can get involved in. Like sign up, get involved. Like if you're looking for like man, like I wish my chapter had a political project we could be doing, something we could really sink our teeth into, then that's the shit, because I'm involved with the restaurant organizing project, and we've got like campaign guides and like, having regular calls for people to like, get their questions answered, to hear about what other chapters are doing. Like we got you set up. So if you are looking for stuff to do right now, and obviously like with the coronavirus, like it's changed the game a little bit about what organizing looks like.
Right.
So it's like, now's a good time to get embedded with those projects, because part of what we're thinking is like, once the, shelter in place orders are gone and like the pandemic has subsided, which eventually will happen, people start going back to work, and we want as many people as we can to kind of be going back to work ready to like organize those workplaces.
That makes
especially
total
if they're
sense.
in industries like the restaurant industry.
Yeah.
And we can make a big difference. So.
Right on. Thanks for coming on the show, man.
Also, I want you to
anytime.
come on again one day to talk about the teachers union and why you hate Boston. I didn't get to ask you about those.
Right.
Two topics I could talk about all fucking day.
Nice.
All right.
All right.
Another time then, because this was awesome.
Yeah.
So thanks so much.
Awesome.
All right.
Yeah, no, my pleasure.
All right. Thanks, dude. Peace, everybody. We love you, Kate Root.
Peace.
Love you, Kate Root.